So finally, the UFC is getting rid of Apex cards. Dana White recently announced that he is trying to get out of the Apex, and thank God. I've been calling for this for such a long time. I've made videos in the past talking about how the Apex is ruining our entertainment and ruining the UFC because the cards are just boring. The UFC made it really obvious they're trying to skimp out and save some money with these Apex cards, and Dana White is giving us at least a little bit of hope towards the future that we might not see any more Apex cards. I'll even reiterate my past points revolving around the Apex and just how bad it really was for the sport. And at the time when the Apex was first introduced during that whole period of time where everybody was getting sick all of a sudden, it was a great idea. Having their own facility and being able to have their own fights every single weekend during that period of time was really clutch. It really helped out with the UFC because most other sports had to just cancel everything, but the UFC still kept on trucking business as usual. And honestly, again, it was a great idea. But as time has gone on now, and we've reached into 2023, 2024, 2022, even parts of that, it felt like it wasn't really needed anymore. Some fighters hated the Apex, some fighters really enjoyed the Apex, but as a fan, I really disliked it. I grew to hate it eventually. It just really felt like a lot of the fighters on there weren't giving it their all. It felt like a glorified sparring session at times, and some fighters did show out and have good performances and got crazy knockouts, but the environment and the aura just doesn't really compare to a crowded event. And I do understand the Apex is a huge financial investment for the UFC, and they have to get their money's worth. But I feel like at this point, the UFC has gotten all the money they can squeeze out of the Apex, and now it just feels like they're putting on cards just to save money so that they can stack a pay-per-view card, which is fine. I love pay-per-view cards. It's even better if that pay-per-view is stacked. But when I go and look at the next week's card and it's an Apex fight night and I see a bunch of not high value names on there and a bunch of fights that I'm not really excited for, it makes it really difficult as a fan. And I love the UFC. I watch it every single weekend. Check my channel out. You can see I do a live stream every single week of every single fight night. Pay-per-view does not matter. I watch every single fight every single week. But I would be lying to you if I said I was looking forward to every single Apex card. I just don't care sometimes. And I watch it anyways because this is my YouTube channel, and I love the sport. I'm very passionate about it, but the Apex just doesn't bring that level of aura that I wish it would. So Dana White announcing this and the UFC overall trying to move forward and be more on the road and traveling to different cities and getting out of the Apex entirely, I think is a huge W. I do understand it might cost them more money in the long run, but I think as a fan, this is the best thing that we could possibly get right now. The big thing that I wanted from the UFC in 2024 was them moving out of the Apex. So them taking this step forward to get out of it pretty much solves one wish or one gripe that I had with the UFC, and I couldn't be more excited for it. I think with this, we're going to see more towns that don't normally get a UFC event get a UFC event. I think we're going to have fighters actually get more crazy KOs. We're probably going to have better cards as a result of this because the UFC has to make money with these crowded events. So they're going to put fighters who actually have name value on these fight night cards now. So when it comes to a business standpoint for the UFC, they're no longer saving any money. But when it comes to an entertainment aspect for us fans, this is what we need for the sport to grow. I want this sport to continue growing. I want the UFC to be a staple of American sports or just sports worldwide. I want this sport to compete with NFL, with the NBA in America. I want this to be a top 3 level sport from now on. And I think not having any Apex cards really makes that happen. Overall, I'm just really tired of seeing the next week's fight night after a great pay-per-view be some Pfeiffer versus Hermanson or something like that, which is a good scrap, don't get me wrong, but like it doesn't get you too excited about next week's fight night, especially when the co-main event is something that's not even remotely relevant to the rankings at all. I think every fight night should have a top 5, top 10 contender on there. I don't think anybody unranked should be headlining a fight night main event unless it's like a huge, massive name making their return. Like if Jose Aldo versus Jonathan Martinez was a headline of a fight night, I would be totally okay with that, even though Martinez is ranked. But if Martinez was unranked and Jose Aldo came back, I still wouldn't mind that being a headline of a fight night. Like, having one bad fight night main event should be the exception, not the norm. And recently it's been the norm, having really mediocre fight nights in terms of name value. Obviously these cards can come out here and they can have finish after finish and be an exciting fight night, but we all need something to get excited for. And seeing a unranked guy who is unproven in the UFC be the co-main event of a fight night doesn't really make you too excited. The top names and the higher ranked guys is what really brings the overall hype of a fight night card, or just a card in general. And when you have a guy who is, again, not ranked, there's not much stakes to it. Like when Joe Pyfer lost against Jack Hermanson, all he lost was just some hype. He didn't lose a ranking spot. He didn't lose like a title shot. All he lost was just some hype, and he can easily garner that back with a few more wins. Let's be real here. If Joe Pyfer comes back out here and he improves and gets a couple more wins, maybe he beats a Bo Nickel out of nowhere. If they end up fighting each other, then guess what? He gets all of his hype back just like nothing. But if you have two high-ranked top 5 guys who are fighting for a title shot and they lose, there's real stakes on the line. And if you add title fights on fight nights, that's even more amazing. If you put Bilal versus Leon Edwards on a fight night main event for the welterweight strap for free, that would be amazing. So I think the UFC should be more willing to put title fights along with just really high ranked fighters on the main event of fight nights from now on. And if they do that and they get out of the Apex, I think we're chilling. I think as a UFC fan, we couldn't ask for much more, and we'll be happy all year long. So if in 2025 they scrap the Apex and we have fight nights every single week and it's a crowded event, that might be the best year of the UFC. They might even have their best year. And I would love for them to come to more cities around the United States and maybe even in Europe. Like, we can travel around the whole world. It doesn't have to be just the United States. I know it's easier for the UFC to travel within the United States, but if they go to Europe, if they go to other places in the world and have fight nights there, then it only expands the market more. It helps the younger generation aspire more to be a UFC fighter in the future, and it only provides more content for me and for the UFC money-wise. I think it's just going to be a great move. So that's pretty much my take. I won't miss the Apex whatsoever. If you agree, disagree, or have your own take, leave it in the comment section down below. I'm going to get out of here, guys. Like, subscribe, hit that bell icon for notifications. I'll see y'all later. Peace.